I think you ought to know that men's radio, the place where men and women really speak. Oh man, what a show! It's men's radio. This crazy show is on 3 times a week. Now Russ and Phil are there to help with all your cares. We laugh, we cry, we talk like grown-ups do. But if you're sad and low, it won't cost you no dough. Men's radio, that's the place for you. With Russ Kane and Phil Dave.
And there you have it. That is the Britain's entry for Eurovision 2022. It's Russ and Phil with the theme tune for Men's Radio Station. I think that it's got Winner Winner Chicken Dinner written all over it. Welcome to another week with Men's Radio Station. You find us on www.mensradiostation.com. You find us on Twitter. You find us on Facebook. And where I'd really love you to go, apart from the Algarve or Spain, obviously, get a bit of sunshine, is on our YouTube channel. It's the Men's Radio YouTube channel. Just go there. Hit the subscribe button. Please give us a thumbs up. Hit the like button. It means loads to us. It'll take you about 7 seconds, if that. The votes are coming in.
Might encourage you, though, to stick to the Algarve because that's green list at the moment. Spain.
Okay. Oh, no, bad news. Bonjour. Neil Point from the Surrey jury. Thank you, Ramsey. Why Masalem? Paul Claridge, are you there with the Croydon votes? Good afternoon, everyone. Not in Croydon today. I'm instead heading to my GO for my second vaccination. GO? What is that? General Post Office. My second vaccination dose. Let's go to Scotland. Hello, Sue Sleet, chairman of the Scottish. Have you got the votes for Phil and Russ?
I reckon that's a typo. I think that Paul is going to his GP, not his GO.
I knew that. I was just being deliberately thick. Sue Sleet. Hi, guys. Thank you. That's your vote. Thank you, Scotland. Did you see any of it? I'm just fascinated by it. It's not aimed at me.
I suggest, though, that actually I take it as a huge compliment that we scored nil point, and I tell you for why.
Go on, tell me how you draw success out of total.
No, I tell you why. Well, no, I tell you what, is because I don't think it's a disaster. I think it means that the world actually sits up and listens and pays so much attention to what Britain is doing that it's genuinely wound up by us. And I take that as a massive compliment.
They hate us.
They are that annoyed by us that they are prepared to deliberately ignore an okay song. Like, I'm not going to lie. I don't actually think that his entry that James, what was his name? James, help me out here.
James Bond.
Whatever his name is. James someone who actually...
James Herriot.
Whatever his name is, I have to tell you...
James.
I heard the entry he was supposed to go in with last year. Many of the acts, by the way, that appeared in this year's Eurovision were supposed to do last year.
Really?
But as per Eurovision rules, you're not allowed to, if the song has been released, you're not allowed to sort of let it be out there in the public for a certain amount of time. And of course, it would have gone way over that amount of time. So they couldn't use last year's songs that they'd all written for the Eurovision Song Contest. They had
You're
to write,
so wise, so much wisdom in a little tiny head.
Well, quite. They had to write new songs for this year. Right. I appreciate you saying so. I don't think that's the case. I'm just a bit of a Eurovision nut. But anyway.
Are you?
Oh, I love Eurovision. Oh, absolutely.
Do you want to hear my Eurovision story? I realised many years ago that there hadn't been a best of Eurovision compilation album. So with the guy that I was doing business with at the time, the most lovely guy, we thought, how do we do this? So we thought, and we double checked, and there hadn't been at this time in the 90s a Eurovision best of. So we went to various record labels and we got a contract from EMI. And EMI said, we love this. We love this idea. Off you go. And do it. So we jumped on a plane and went to have a meeting.
What's one of those?
Big silver bird in the sky, it bring man to country. So we jumped on this plane and went to Geneva. I forgot the guys, and everything was going swimmingly well. And we physically had, in those days, had a briefcase. Ooh, get me. We had the contract from EMI. Everything was done. And the guy said, and I'm going back a very, very long time. The guy said, "Yeah, fine. This is great. We're all happy with this, and we'll proceed. Just one little thing." And we went, "Yep. I need £100,000." So I said, "Oh, you mean Eurovision needs?" And the guy said, "No." You're catching my drift here, everybody. Funnily enough, we never made the album.
Now,
And then it got done. Then it got done by the big boys. But it was just one of those things when you suddenly have an idea and you thought, let's pursue this idea, see where it takes us.
That's curious that he didn't actually tell you that until right the last second.
It was odd when we were sitting opposite him. It was either a cafe or an office. So it was so long ago. It was the early I think it was the early 90s. Pretty sure it was. But that was my experience of the delights of Eurovision.
And by the way, I have to say thank you very much indeed to Melanie Hutchins, who says it's James Newman. And do you know what? I did not realize that. I did not put two and two together. She says James Newman is John Newman's brother. John Newman, of course, a very talented singer in his own right, who has not been at all well in recent years. So I don't know how he is.
No, I didn't know that.
But that would be very interesting. He's far too young to go through anything like this. But he was having to take a step back from music for having a brain tumor.
Oh, crap. Well, I didn't know that. I'm not familiar with him. Let's dash up to, I think he's still in Scotland, Dave Sleet. Greetings, one and all. Ed Grossman, thank you. It's fixed, isn't it, you think? Andrea Lucas.
Thank you, baked potato.
Just think one of these days.
I never get tired of that. Do you ever get tired of that?
One of these days, you'll have the buttons right in front of you, and you'll never need to rely on Slow Coach me to press the right button.
I will always have to rely on you. Yes, I've got all the buttons, but I don't want to use them because I don't know. Paul Rose, can we take a moment to reflect on the fact that a massive live event took place? It was an incredible achievement by the Dutch organisers. Well, we love them because of their cheese. Cheese, clogs and dykes. Sounds like my kind of party, to be honest with you. There we go. What do you need? Maybe twiglets. And some Lambrini. That's always goes down well.
You Chrissy Holt, by the way.
All this year I'm off to sunny Spain. Hey, viva España.
We do live in hope that one day we'll be off to sunny Spain. I don't know if it'll be this year, Chrissy Holt.
It'll be this year. I ain't going not nowhere this year.
Lovely day today after rain yesterday. Well, there was rain yesterday and there's rain today. Oh, well.
It's been disgusting. I managed to get a very quick dog walk in. It's not a euphemism. I got a quick walk in with Ebony between massive showers, black clouds and all the rest of it. Veronica Curran, who always watches the ABC of CBD with the great Ollie Mammon from the Tincture Club. Hello, Veronica. Good afternoon, gents. Good afternoon to you. Jules Silverman. Fixing everybody up to get married. Hello. Melanie Hutchins, that's true. And James has a Brit for songwriting. That's very, very good. Paul Rose, yeah, it was a big event. I only caught the last 20 minutes, mercifully. That was an elegant sufficiency for me.
I didn't finish.
People love it. Look, people love it. What the hell? It's a bit of nonsense. So
I didn't finish off by telling you that Chrissy was saying that she's eating a lovely prawn supreme and rice. Prawn supreme.
Supreme.
Supreme? Maybe it's
as the prawn's sitting there in the dish. I got it. Does it go, baby love?
Yeah.
The little prawns are all dancing.
Diana Ross shellfish formation or something.
That's it. There's 3 prawns, and they're going baby love, baby, and they're doing all the Motown syncopated moves. That must be prawn supreme. I must take less drugs before I do a show. Hey, Paul Claridge. Hey, let's put together.
It's the Neurofen. She says prawn supreme and rice that she made from scratch. So there you go. Good work.
Well, did she grow the rice? This is bullshit. She didn't grow the rice.
Anyway, by the way, we've got a really interesting guest coming up in just a moment. We need to trail ahead.
Can I give you a little bit of background on this? Because I've had long... this all came...
Oh, my goodness me. Sorry. Immediately, guest has to come on screen. I've just seen there's a furry friend on the lap. Right, hang on a second. Hello, Hannah. Who have we got with you?
Hello, hi. How are you?
We're good. We're good. Who you got?
Well,
oh, my
I picked up this puppy on Saturday. So she's actually very good, but she's got a little bit excited hearing your music.
Of course.
Oh my
So
God.
she's
Oh,
jumped up on
Hannah,
me, so I hope
we
that's all
love
right.
this. So we've got the first question is, what breed? It looks like a cockapoo.
She is
to
an
me.
Australian Labradoodle.
She is called a toy golden doodle.
Oh, close enough.
Oh,
Very close though, both of you. So
Well,
yeah, she's
yeah.
pretty
Oh my
tiny.
God, she's incredible. Right.
Oh,
there.
what a gorgeous
is.
little dog. There'll be a
Right,
little
we're gonna
cockapoo.
We're going to carry on giving you a proper introduction now. We'll see you in a
Yes,
second.
That's all right.
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
All right, I'll go off again.
Yeah, you bugger off. Right, go. Right, this is the story. Through some of our business contacts, I was introduced to a fascinating business group called BIP 100. And BIP 100 stands for Business is Personal. And I'm not a member of this group, but I was very impressed with the people they had in it. They were very, very like-minded. And I have always believed, and I know that Phil does too, that my experience has been if you really don't like somebody, it's very hard to do business with them. It never feels right. And I think if you like somebody, you'll go that extra mile. If you think that they're like-minded and they're decent people. And so two extraordinary people. Their surname is Power, and if ever anything was appropriate, Power would be the name. They're extraordinary couple. So I spoke to a lady called Penny Power for about an hour and a half, just to get to know each other. And then I've spoken to her husband, and also her son's coming on as a guest as well. But Penny, in the middle of all this, started to tell me the story, quite out of the blue, about her daughter, Hannah Power. And I sat listening to this extraordinary tale, and I didn't know what to say. I was so moved. I was so impressed. And I thought, this exemplifies everything that we try to do on men's radio and women's radio. It's a story of incredible courage, overcoming something that would destroy most of us, and getting on with one's life. It's a story of how mental health can be addressed after a shattering event. I'm going to say no more. The story, I think, will absolutely rock you. It is not for the faint-hearted, I will say that. And I know 50% of our audience are women, and I know the women are going to be both horrified and incredibly impressed by our next guest. So without, as they say, further ado, may we bring back, with or without the puppy, Hannah Power.
Oh, that was such a lovely intro. Thank you, Russell. And hi, Phil.
That's my pleasure. Your family, I've never known them until the last few weeks, and I've just kind of hit it off. You know, it's that your mother is an absolute force of nature, because it was a kind of random business Zoom call, and we ended up talking for about an hour and a half, and then I met your dad kind of by mistake, because I thought I was talking to your brother.
Oh yeah,
So
it's the same name.
Yeah, it's very confusing because they're both called Thomas Power, so that's where it all goes horribly wrong. Anyway, Hannah, welcome to Men's Radio Station.
Thank you.
We normally don't have guests on a Monday or Wednesday, but I was so moved and so impressed that I wanted to give you, and I discussed it with Phil, of course, the proper amount of time, not to just shuffle you in on a Friday and hope for the best. So if you're willing, in your own words, tell us what happened.
Okay, of course. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. And little puppy will stay out of the way, so don't worry about that. She's very good. Yeah, so I guess it's always challenging to know, where to start these kinds of stories. But I'm 28 now, and my story starts at 23. So at 23, I had just graduated from university, and I was living in London. So I'd just done the whole, graduate from uni, move to London thing. I was living in Wandsworth Town, and I just started working for a big consulting firm, and I was on an out-of-town project in Coventry. And I went over to Morzine in the south of, in the Alps even, to visit some of my friends who were over there doing a ski season. So I was very excited. I paid for my flights on my Amex points, because I just built up all these points by doing all this hotel travel. And I thought, oh God, this is great. You know, my life's, you know, really getting going. And we'd had a challenging few years as a family. We'd had quite a lot of deaths and things like that. And it kind of felt like we were coming out of a really difficult period.
Yes.
So I went over to Morzine to visit these friends, and I'm not much of a skier. I've been a few times, but it's not my thing. I like tennis, so it was quite tiring, you know, being a beginner skier is quite tiring.
Yeah.
And we went out one night to one of the bars, you know, that like you do when you go skiing, and I was exhausted from being a beginner, so I left early to walk home. Left before my friends, and their chalet was I say chalet, it wasn't a fancy chalet, it was like a chalet just being a posh word for a flat, and two flats that made a building which made a chalet. And on the way home, unfortunately, got lost. Ski resorts all looks the same, and I'd had a bit to drink, and I was, you know, got a bit lost. And Morzine is one of those ski resorts where everyone kind of knows everyone. So you meet someone. I met people that I went to school with in bars, because it's just one of those places. And I was walking down this long dark road, and a car pulled over, and they said, you know, what are you doing? Like, you know, are you okay? Because it was I wasn't really where I should be. And I said, I'm lost. I'm looking for my friend Kaylee's house, my Kaylee chalet. And they said, oh, we know Kaylee, get in. So I did, which obviously was not a smart thing to do, and obviously something that we're all told not to do. But in the moment and the holiday and all of this stuff, I just got in. And we started to drive alongside the road. There's not many roads are there in these resorts. And I noticed we were going past the Welcome to Morzine sign. And I sort of thought, I said, what are you doing? You know, this is not the way. And I quickly realized that something really bad. It was like a sudden dawning. I was in a car with 3 men, and it was dark, and it was nighttime, and no one knew where I was. And suddenly I'm in a car driving outside of a town down. And I just thought, oh my God, they're going to kill me. I just thought, I don't know whether I'd watched too many, you know, films or whatever, but I thought they're going to kill me. It just had this really sinister, calm feel in the car. And I think I got my phone out. It's hard to remember everything because the way your brain processes trauma. But at some point I got my phone out, and they chucked it out the window, took it away. And I just started thinking, oh my God, you know, that these people are going to kill me, and this is going to be the end of my life. And had all of those thoughts that you have, or some people will have had, because there are other people that have experienced near-death experiences, I guess. Yep. And we drove, well, it felt like forever. I think realistically it was probably about 15, 20 minutes, but it felt like hours, down out of the town and down into a very sort of windy road down to a river. And I remember the sound of the gravel crunching under the tires, you know, as the car was in. You remember when you're a kid and you land on the ground of your house, it's comforting, but this was an uncomforting sound because everything was slowing down. And one of the man next to me sort of pulled my seat down, and then him and the passenger both got out of the car, and they started smoking. And then the driver of the car got into the middle of the car, and suddenly I realized what was going to happen. And I'd been screaming and shouting for the whole time, begging for my life, begging for saying, you know, telling them about, I'd read this thing or watched this thing, you're supposed to humanize yourself. So I was telling them about my family and all of these things. You know, I've got my mum and my brothers. I was telling them about that, and, you know, please don't kill me. And I'm only 23. And then I realized what was going to happen. And I realized that this was not a killing situation. This was a rape situation. And that thing that you had feared and you'd heard happen, but you never thought would happen to you, was about to happen to me. And I just got this moment of calm where I kind of thought, okay, this is going to happen. You are going to be fine. You just got to just keep fighting. So I just kept kicking and screaming and fighting and screaming things like, I've got HIV and all of these things that you're supposed to say, but I wasn't successful. And, you know, this guy did rape me. And then it didn't last for that long. I don't think it could have been very enjoyable for him. I was kicking and screaming the whole time. And then he got back into the driver's seat, and the 2 passengers got back in, and we drove back up, and they dropped me at basically the same place where I'd been lost in the first place, and chucked my shoes at me. I had no shoes on, and just pushed me out the car. And then I just walked for a long time, just screaming for help until somebody found me. And then fortunately I came across a kind of a residential area, I guess. And then I was found, and yeah, that's a long story after that. But that was what happened.
I can't even begin to imagine sort of what you must have been going to. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I'm sort of shaking listening to you recall the story. So heaven only knows what it was that you were going through at the time when you were in that car. I just can't begin to imagine. Seriously, that just the not knowing what was about to happen must be horrific enough without what actually happened. So just how do you even begin to come back from something like that? You know, what is the next step after you go through that sort of experience?
I mean, so many things happen in your mind when you experience trauma, and a trauma like rape particularly is one that we don't, speak about as a society because it's so uncomfortable, right? It's sex. Nobody wants to talk about that stuff. It's a word that makes people flinch. I didn't use the word for years because I was so, I actually didn't mind saying it. It was people's reactions. But, I really want to normalize the use of this word. For me, obviously, the first thing I felt, which carried me through the first few days, was actually massive gratitude, which probably sounds a bit nuts. But because I had been so convinced for such a long period of time that I was gonna die, I felt really grateful that I was alive. Yeah. So all I really felt for actually quite a long time was massive gratitude. That carried me through for quite a long time. Then I just felt very lost and confused and very disassociated, like, because it happened abroad and obviously I came home, it was like, did that happen? And then so many emotions that I went through shame, through loads of things. In fact, one of the most harmful things that happened after was I Googled to feel normal. I don't know if anyone ever does that. I just Googled, how to recover from rape or something like that. Yeah. And one of the first articles which came up was this article written by a man saying you should never date a woman who's been raped because she's so much hassle. And I read that like...
Christ. I remember your mum saying that to me. And at the time, I think my language was a little more fruity. What a thing to say.
I know. And I read that probably 2 days after. So that, and I was single at the time, and that was really harmful. In terms of how I came back from it, I mean, for 6 months, I think I was in quite a lot of shock. I think you just go into that coping way. I started to, process it, I guess, after 6 months, and got very, very down. I was diagnosed with PTSD. And, that's a whole thing in itself. Again, something that we often don't understand, that we associate with.
Talk about that in a sec. I'm sure people would like to know, only if you want to, Hannah. And again, thank you for coming on and telling this story.
That's okay.
Because it's, as I said, I think it's one of the most powerful stories we've ever had on MRS. Now, there you are. You're in this foreign town. You've just been brutally and horribly attacked under the worst of circumstances. You're 23 years old. Can you walk us through how you got back to England and all the rest of it, and were the police any good, etc.? Because those things are the nitty gritty of it is really important.
Yeah. So what happened was, eventually, after kind of screaming for help, initially it was a man who now I don't remember all of this I remember flashes. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's not like, as the narrative isn't as clear for me as it has been pieced back together through other people giving me information. So I was found by a man. I didn't want him anywhere near me. And then a lady found me, a really nice lady who lives just north of London. And she stayed with me until the police came, and the ambulance. The police immediately went off looking for the car. And they were nice. They didn't speak a lot of French. They did speak a lot of I which is fine. I was in France, but it was quite difficult to, give them the information. Also, you always think, I would look at the number plate, so I'd remember it. But obviously, in the moment, even if I saw the number plate, there's no way I would have remembered the number plate. I just remember it was a dark car. I remember the material of the seats. It was like this soft leather, but like an old leather. So I went to the hospital, which and a nice girl came with me, an Irish girl, and I thought, oh, I'm going to hospital, you know, I'll get taken care of. And the hospital were horrible to me. They, I remember her so well, this lady, this French nurse or something, who just said, oh, you English girls, you come here, you drink, you know, you say this stuff, and didn't believe me, essentially didn't believe what
She
happened.
didn't believe you?
No, she didn't believe me.
So she was of the delightful school of, she's a girl and she's attractive, so, and she'd been drinking, she was asking for it. That philosophy, was it?
I think so. I mean, I think it was kind of, yeah, I think it was, yeah, that sort of thing. And then they brought in a male doctor, and I said, no, I don't, you know, to like examine me. And I said, no, I don't want, you know, I don't want a man. And they said, it's this or nothing, basically. And until they sort of examined me, and then they obviously believed me after that, because when you could see the kind of bruising and all of those things, and that they were a little bit nicer after that. And we called my mum. Mum flew over to Morzine, well, to Geneva, I think. Then you get the bus or something. Yeah. And Mum flew over, and she, after being in the hospital, eventually they just left me after a while. We didn't give us any drinks or anything like that.
Hang on, they just left you in the hospital?
Yeah, they just put us in this room, myself, and I was lucky I had this really nice Irish girl with me. And yeah, I used her phone to call my mum and told my mum. And then I couldn't tell my friends that I was with, because I didn't have my phone, and obviously I didn't know their numbers. So I couldn't tell people that I was staying with. So mum called their mum for their mum to call them. Right. Eventually, they just left us, and they'd taken all my clothes, and I was just in a gown. But it was like, I need to get, I was freezing. Do you know what I mean? It's snowing. So eventually we found my clothes in a bag, and we put them on. And then she called somebody who she worked with, and he came and collected us and drove us back to the chalet. And thank you, Veronica. And then Mum came over. Then we went to do the whole reporting with the police, which was really challenging because they don't speak any English. So we took one of my friends who could do the translation, and then we went on like a drive around to try and find the spot to try and pick up the DNA. But I mean, as you can imagine, like when you drive out of a ski resort, like there was no like what's the word?
No landmark,
landmarks. So I didn't know. Do you know, how would you possibly know? It'd been pitch black, no idea. So we did that, and you know, that was really tough actually, and tough for Mum as well, to just drive around looking for, because we were trying to find the cigarette butts for like the DNA. Yeah. But no, we didn't find the space. And then we went through the reporting process, and then the next day we flew back to the UK. Now, because it happened in a holiday resort, they don't want to promote these kinds of things to look for witnesses, because obviously then you're putting out into the public domain that people get raped where in the town that you're in. And actually, since I've publicly shared my story, I've actually had quite a lot of people contact me, fathers of daughters who live in Morzine or have been to Morzine, and actually quite a lot of people have said I was also raped in Morzine, but it's never public. Do you know what I mean? No one ever said, because
God forbid it should affect their profits.
Yeah, because it would affect tourism, obviously.
Am I right in thinking that these people are almost rape tourists, a phrase I've just invented, where they come over the border? Was that the situation?
Yes, I think so. I'm always very hesitant to give them to describe them too much, because as I said, your brain, when under trauma, it protects you and it blanks out certain parts of information. But they definitely weren't French, they weren't English, and they were very professional at what they were doing. So yes, I think it was something like that. And as I said, a couple of people have contacted me since who have had a similar MO in terms of what happened, which the first time somebody contacted me and said that, I was devastated, because, you know, I just hoped that I was a one-off. But yeah, I think that is what it is. I think they come in and then, they drive off. I mean,
from this then that the perpetrators were never caught?
No. So we went through all of the legal reporting over there, and then we did the same thing in the UK, because then they're supposed to chat. I mean, as you can imagine, the processes aren't particularly good. And because they didn't appeal for witnesses, there was very little information. The only thing I was ever given was a load of CCTV images to identify the car, but you couldn't have even identified the shape of the car. These pictures were so blurry. So it would have been impossible from that. So no, they were never caught, and the case was dropped probably about 9 months after for lack of evidence.
Your mother said to me, and correct me if this is right or wrong, that the UK police were equally useless.
I think it's really tough when the crime doesn't happen in your country because there's less control they have to help. And also because, so when I was in France, they took all of they did the rape kit, where they do all of your exams. But so I'd had a shower. By the time I got back to England, obviously, it had been like 48 hours. So I'd had a shower. So any of the evidence given in the UK wasn't really worth anything, which we did go through. So I had the exams done twice. And I think, I don't know. I think I don't actually blame the police. I think they probably get desensitized. Unfortunately, this happens a lot. People are raped a lot. It's really, really common. So I think maybe they're possibly desensitized. I mean, yes, it was really tough. They turned up at the house and I had to repeat the story again and again. That's the thing. You keep repeating it over and over again. Yeah. And she took some photos of the bruises and she took my clothes. And she wasn't particularly sensitive, but as I said, I think they're desensitized. Do you know what I mean? I think this stuff.
But that's I know this is a slight adjunct, but it's no excuse because people get murdered all the time, and you shouldn't get inured to that. That's their job. They're supposed to be trained. This is an incredibly sensitive situation that's happened to a 23-year-old girl in a foreign country. A little bit of kindness and sympathy in the proper sense of the word.
The worst part was actually, so we have in the UK, we have something called SARC centres, SARC, sex and rape clinic or something. And they're dotted around. And that's where you go after you've been raped. That's where they do the rape kit and they provide you with all of the stuff that you need. And we called it the SARC centre. No, we turned up in Isha and they didn't open the door. And then we called them and they said, we're closed on weekends. So we drove home. I know. So we drove home.
Only in Britain.
And so this was a Saturday. We drove home and then the police came and then the police said, no, they'll open for us because we're the police. So you can only get in if you go with the police. So they opened up, but they were obviously quite irritated that we'd got them out of their Saturday evenings. They turned up, they're all annoyed, taking their coats off as if they'd been called into work on the weekend, a nurse and a doctor. Now it was a male doctor with a foreign male doctor, which obviously I don't have a problem with, but at the time I didn't really want another exam by another man.
Yes.
And so I said to them, can I please have a female doctor? And they said, there isn't one available. It's this or nothing. So that was the second time I'd been given the this or nothing. So I then said, okay, fine. We'll do that because I needed to get anti-HIV medication because we weren't sure on the ethnicity and all of these things of the guys. So I had to get the HIV medication. You have to go through the process to get the HIV meds and you have to take them straight away. Otherwise they don't work.
Right.
So I said, okay, fine. I've got to get the HIV meds. So I'll go through this process. As we went into the room for him to do it, he had a phone in his pocket. And as he leant down to do the exam, his phone was ringing in my ear really loud. And I said, oh my God, do you mind sort of just putting your phone just out of the room or something just for this? Because obviously it's been long now. It's been like 48 hours. I mean, sort of haven't slept. Yeah. And he got really annoyed with me.
He got annoyed with you?
Rolling his eyes, said, well, I had to come in.
It's so your damn job, you jerk. Shut up.
I know. So I then said, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. Stop. So we stopped. We left the room. And then that's when they said, if you don't do the exam, we won't give you the HIV medication.
Oh, so great. On top of being told this or nothing, you were then blackmailed into it. That's nice.
Yeah, essentially. So then I had to go back into the room and have the exam to get the medication.
Now, obviously, I should stress that there have been some bits of information that you've given away that could potentially identify the centre of which you went to, and we should obviously be mindful that there is no one here themselves. But look, there is no denying that if it's what you went through, it's what you went through, and it's if anyone from the SARC centre does want to answer any points, then they'd obviously be welcome on any future programme. But from and
we'll invite Hannah back as well.
Yeah, and
so they can have the conversation because I'm not having it one-sided from these other people.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not somebody who is, I don't need to, I'm not trying to push blame or be angry. The world is the world. I'm realistic about resources and funding. I get this whole thing. It was just, I think, you know, when we live in a really great country, right? We live in a country that's full of care and support and all of these things. And I don't rely on it very often. And this was the only time I really ever had. So it was a shame that, you know, that it didn't work out. And the final part was then getting referred to what's called RASAC, which is the Centre to Support People After They've Been Raped, with counselling and things like that. But that had a 2-year wait list.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
It had a 2-year wait list.
Yeah.
Well, what's the point of them?
Because there's so much rape and there's
what's
no
the point of them? If they've got to wait 2 years, it's ridiculous.
I know, but it is, but there's no funding. You know, nobody goes and runs the London Marathon for rape charities. You know, people don't do that. It's not something that people want to talk about. It's not something that, you know, since I've been raped, I found out so many people that I know that have been raped. I've had some of my best friends' girlfriends say to me, I've been raped, and my boyfriend doesn't know, because people don't want to talk about it. It's such a secret. It's such an uncomfortable secret crime that nobody wants to talk about it. And if nobody wants to talk about it, nothing's going to change. And it's happening.
You see, that's why I wanted you, because knowing some of your story, Hannah, and understanding that you were willing and brave enough to come on the show, you don't get these conversations in other media outlets. You simply don't. And we are led to believe that the police would be fantastic and they'll be there for you, and all these charities and everybody, they'll be for you, you know, they'll be there on your behalf. And it's not always the case. And it's a shock.
It is. And I think, you know, the charities want to be, you know, the people that I spoke to are lovely, but there's only, you know, it's £30 a session, I think, for you to have the support. Because there's a certain type of support that you need to have, which I found out the hard way by having very much the wrong support, which was actually very re-traumatizing, because it's such a, you know, lack of understood area, I guess, of what happens to you after. They want to support you. They just don't have the ability to. And that's why I actually I have a jewelry business, and one of the profits of one of the necklaces all goes to RASAC to try and raise money for people to have more sessions. But
that's a beautiful thing. See, I've got another question, but it's not one you can answer. It's just a rhetorical question. Why on earth is something that is so needed and required reliant on charity? Why isn't this part of either the NHS or a police offshoot or whatever? It should not be reliant on people, you know, pouring buckets of water over their head to raise money or whatever they do. It's nonsense.
There's an argument to be had that many different fields shouldn't be dependent on charity.
I completely agree. I totally agree.
Absolutely. Anna, you mentioned earlier on, by the way, about PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder. And what I'm particularly sort of interested in, especially when someone sort of goes through that level of trauma, is what's the lasting impact of it? You know, because I think that sort of time, they say that time's a great healer. Some people dismiss it, they say it's a load of rubbish, but others might sort of say, actually, no, you do need time to get over something. What have you sort of, as it were, learned to, I don't want to say get over, because that sounds really harsh, but you know what I mean? So what's become easier and what still haunts you from it, if you see what I mean?
So I would actually say I am healed from it. I really believe the first thing that I said to my mum when she arrived was, this is not going to ruin my life. Like I was very clear that I was not going to have my life ruined by the decisions that other people made for me. I also have amazing people around me who I have watched recover from huge loss. I mean, my cousin lost his father and his sister in the space of a year. And that's, you know, I've been surrounded by the most incredibly strong people. And I've also seen, you know, on TV and, you know, that you can recover. So I always knew it was possible to recover. It was going to be tough. The impact of PTSD is, I think it affects people very differently. For me, it was a feeling of, obviously you have things like flashbacks are really common. So it's constant flashbacks that catch you off guard. So I would be on a work call or something and I would get a flash, you know, and it would be shocking, like bad dreams. It really messed with my head at one point. This one, it was my worst, where and this actually, I sound nuts when I say this, but I will say it anyway. I became convinced. I left my front door open to go and get something out of the car. It was a hot day, and I became convinced there was a snake in my house. Convinced.
Convinced that what?
There was a snake in my house.
Oh, that's Freudian.
And I was just convinced that there was a snake in my house. And what it was is...
Sorry, I'm really sorry if I'm lost here, but when you say that you were convinced there was a snake in the house, was that why you left the house, or you mean because you left the front door open?
No, I just got back in the house and I thought, I shouldn't have left the front door open. Like, it's really hot. A snake might have got in. I think what it does is PTSD, as I said, I'm not an expert in PTSD, but for me, what it did was it magnified all my worst fears. So all of my worst fears were coming out. So having a snake in the house, something I've always, I don't know, been really scared of, I guess. Like, I guess, I don't know, maybe. I remember once I had a friend of mine at uni, someone at their uni had a snake and it got loose and it went in someone's bedroom. And I thought that sounds like the worst thing ever. I would have to leave uni because I don't like snakes. So it started to play with my mind in this way. I used to get very scared, again, very logical, that when I would be walking down a street that I was going to get shot in the back. So I would always be looking behind me like this, you know? And when every time I would come up to a roundabout, I would think the car was going to crash into me. So it's like you're on hyper alert of all fear.
Was that exhausting, Hannah?
Totally exhausting, and very, very hard to explain to people. Because if you ring your mum up and say, Mum, I think there's a snake in my house. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, obviously there's not a snake.
No, I get that. They might think, Christ, Hannah's losing it. I get
actually, that's really interesting that you say that, because I wonder how common that is without people actually realizing what it is that causes that. Because on a really trivial level, and this is something I don't necessarily talk very much about, and it's certainly, I know there's not a competition, but it's not what we're here to talk about. I was, several years ago, I was mugged by two individuals, and I, ever since then, have been very twitchy about when people walk near me. And even now, all these years later, I still get really twitchy if someone walks from behind too near me. In fact, it actually happened only the other day when there was this chap who was walking in very close proximity, nothing to do with COVID. I mean, I want people to keep their distance at the best of times, but this more than ever, you know, I just sort of turned around really quickly as if to sort of say, what are you doing? Get away from me. But that was really weird. It must be such a hang up from that. And I've never really thought of it like that.
Yeah, it is. It is that. It's just heightened, you know, it's heightened alertness, I think, of basically.
Yeah. Now, Dave Sleet, who has been very generous, says hypervigilance and hypertension are natural responses.
Yeah.
This is an area that he understands and lectures in. So hypervigilance and hypertension are natural responses.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
you then, having made, and Judy Albert says, your aftercare was almost as shocking as the ordeal. Shocking. So sorry. I'd add, Hannah, absolutely disgraceful.
Yeah.
Inexcusable, unprofessional, and disgraceful.
Yeah. I think the thing is with this, and this is, you know, this is how I coped with it, was it's very easy to get angry and blame the world and be angry and just think life's not fair. But also those emotions actually don't do anything for the person that did it. They only harm you. And I went through all of those emotions, you know, those like the 5 stages of grief, you know, the anger and all of these various things. But I knew I was never going to get traditional justice. I knew that straight away. I never had any belief they were going to find them. These guys were pros. So I chose not to be angry. I'm not angry about what happened. I'm not angry at the services. I chose to believe in good and the good in people and all the great people that are out there, and believe that life doesn't give you more than you can handle and that you can be free from these things if you choose to believe in karma. And I don't mean karma as in, oh, you know, karma will get them. I mean that the more good you can put into the world, the more good that will be in the world. And that's how we can combat these things happening longer term.
Well, let's talk about that, actually, because that's what you've made your life's mission almost, isn't it? Tell us a little bit. I don't want us to run out of time because you absolutely need to talk about the work you do as well. Your story is, I mean, inspirational doesn't sound like a strong enough word, but as far as your work is concerned, how have you used your experiences to help others, and tell us about what you do now?
I mean, I guess, so what I do now is I work with people to, you know, at a very surface level, to grow their personal brands through basically helping people who have some sort of message and mission that they would like to bring to the world. It doesn't have to be huge, you know, it doesn't have to be I want to change all of these things, but it's just bringing something positive and serving an audience into the world and building their brand and a business around that. Essentially, that's what I work with people to do. I really believe that even what I've been through, I still believe, because I went into a really dark place a couple of months before I actually feel like I came through it, where I just became obsessed with, is the world really awful? Are humans just really deep down awful people? I got obsessed with watching World War II documentaries and films, and I was obsessed with, are people just awful? What's the point? Are we awful? And I just came to the conclusion after a lot of soul searching and reading things like A Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl and all of these very cliched things that people do when they go through tough times, that people are not awful, that good people do bad things. And unfortunately, if there's enough, we all have light and dark in all of us. And if enough darkness comes out, then you're capable of anything. And I actually got to the point where I feel so sorry for the men who did that to me, because
you feel sorry for them.
I do, because I just think
if I could get a gun, I would travel to wherever the scumbags lived and I'd shoot them all in the head. I wouldn't hesitate. See, that's the difference between you and I. And my heart rate wouldn't flutter. Wouldn't mean anything to me.
I mean, I think,
and I mean that genuinely.
I've been there, Russell, and I actually took a lot of comfort at the beginning when I would, friends of mine and things like that would say things like that, because I really liked that.
But that's how I am. I wouldn't hesitate, and I'd walk away and think no more of it than swatting a fly. Would mean nothing to me.
See, for me, I just think to be able to perform and act like that, you have to be pretty awful, and to get awful, you have to have had an awful life. You have to have been in an awful environment to be able to behave like that. No baby is born evil. I don't believe that a baby is born evil. I don't believe a child is evil. I believe that we all have light and dark, and we can choose to water the light or water the dark, right? And I think, unfortunately, sometimes we water the dark, and the more that we can be people that choose love and choose goodness and choose to believe that people are good, and we lean more towards the light, even in those moments where you really don't want to. When those are like little moments of miracles where you can choose that light. And that's how I try to live my life. And it sounds cheesy and it sounds all, like self-helpy, but honestly, for me, it's like, that was the way that I got through it. And
doesn't sound cheesy. First of all, it doesn't sound cheesy at all.
I tell you what, I know this is going to sound really, this is also going to sound a bit almost to some degree wishy-washy as well, but my personal belief is that the majority of the world is good. And I tell you, the way you need to put this into some sense of perspective, in a million years, I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy what you have been through. I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy being mugged. I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy, stuff that Russ has been through, all of these things that happen to all of us. If the bad really did outweigh the good, really did, then this sort of stuff would happen far more frequently to far more people, to possibly the same people, day in, day out, all the time. And I'm not saying that it doesn't happen already. Of course it does. But I don't believe for a second that the default setting, if you will, of every single guy out there is to find someone in a vulnerable position and take advantage of that vulnerable position. What's so horrible is, unfortunately, the shocking is that what seems to rise to the top. Now, that may be for better, it may be for worse. It's probably a good thing that to some degree that we do hear the horror stories so that we can be aware of it and people can just make sure that they're a little more vigilant. Even if one person less gets attacked from your appearance on this show today, then something amazing has happened out of this. Okay?
Absolutely.
But my point is that if we keep that positive sort of mindset of thinking, actually, this is actually something that Dave says as well. Dave Sleet says positive focused energy is a massive healer. I genuinely believe that good does outweigh the bad, and it's only because bad is so shocking and so foreign to most of us that's why we hear about it so often.
Yeah,
let me read some of the comments, because I knew you would resonate with our viewers and listeners. Let me just read some of these comments out, because people are going crazy over this. Martin Allen, I agree with your words. Hannah's a good, kind person. To protect those like her in the world needs people like me to keep them safe. Yeah, that's a whole other issue. I'm with you on that. Jules Silverman, it's not cheesy. It's how I see people too. Veronica Curran is saying, what an amazing young lady. You have not allowed those vile men to destroy Hannah. Strength from those who love and cared for you allowed you the ability to heal. Well, I have to say that your mum is an exceptional person.
Yeah.
Now then we've got Elizabeth Green. She's watching from New York City. Morning to you, Elizabeth. Very strong. This brought out some part of you didn't know that you had.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, just to follow on from that, I think part of my message and what I want to get out there isn't just about, rape, but actually about, and trying to prevent it, but actually trying to show people that trauma and rape and these awful things, they don't ruin your life. Resilience is a muscle that you exercise, and we are all going to go through tough times. That's life. Whether it happens this way, it happens in another way. Phil, you've given an example for you. You said, Russell, you have as well. We are all going to go through difficult times, and these things strengthen us. And I wouldn't change what happened to me, because I'm so much stronger because of it. I have so much more love for life, so much more context, so much more empathy, so much more gratitude. And I think that that's really important to me, because I think a lot of people, when they've been raped, because they don't want to look at it and deal with it because it's so painful. But actually, if you can have that courage to sit in it, you can come through it. You don't have to feel some way forever. I don't feel that way now. I don't feel fearful. I don't feel scared. I don't have bad dreams. The only reason I tell my story now is to hopefully find a way that, as you said, that might help one other person. And
I think without doubt that you have, because it is so rare, which is why I was so keen to give you your own show, a complete episode, rather than shoehorn you in, is that it is so rare for someone to be able to speak with such articulacy and such eloquence and such power. And you are a walking, talking example of what can happen, as opposed to, what people shove under the carpet. What makes me infuriated? Well, it all makes me furious, to be honest with you, Hannah. But what upsets me, of course, is that these vile subhumans, you said they were very professional, so God only knows how many times they've done it before, but much more worrying, how many times since. And the police, because they don't want any bad PR for their ski resort, seem to have done absolutely sod all to bring them to justice, and that is shameful.
Yeah, and actually, a few years ago, beginning of 2019, I actually shared this story publicly for the first time and went on to Channel 5 News, and they contacted the police for comment, and they declined.
Of course.
So,
what are they going to say?
Not like,
we're useless.
Exactly. No, I know. Do you know what? Like, I don't know. As I said, I don't harbor anger towards them. This was my path. This is what was meant to happen, and this is how it was meant to be. And the thing I hate is the thoughts that of it happening again and again, and not being able to do anything about that. But I have had to just, that's not my, there's nothing I can do about that. You have to accept what you can do stuff about, don't you, and accept what you can't. And unfortunately, that's not something that I can impact. So I just have to hope that eventually.
See, the trouble is, Hannah, the only way that could have been resolved, that specific issue, is if you've got a major media organization. I'm not talking about Men's Radio, obviously, but and the other people who've come forward and said, yes, this happened to me in the same resort, and then there was a big, huge push, and they'd have to, but it's too late. So there we are.
I have dreamt about that. Not, I've thought about that. God, imagine if we, when I've been watching films and things like that, and I've imagined those kinds of things happening. I don't know. Yeah, exactly. It's too late. It's been over 5 years now. So who knows? Who knows where they are? Who knows if,
Well, hopefully their car slipped and fell off a cliff. Hannah is an inspirational person, says Ramsey. I took a look at her website and wanted to take the online personal brand test, but the link is broken.
Yeah, I just saw that pop up. Yeah, the link is broken because we've just moved the quiz, so we just hadn't updated it yet. So I can send you the new link.
Where do you think you're, having met now online, spoken to your mum for an hour and a half, spoken to you now, spoken to your brother who's coming on as a guest in the near future, and your dad? What is it about your family, in all seriousness, that gives them this extraordinary ability to recover from events that would lay other people low forever.
Oh, Russell, come on! Even I can realise that it's power by name and power by nature.
I said that to her mum, and I've written to them. I was writing to them. I've said power by name, power by nature. Absolutely.
I think it's love. Love and courage. And I don't mean necessarily courage just for yourself, courage for others. So, your sister gets raped. What do you do? Do you know what I mean? Scary. Do you not talk about it?
So upset.
Yeah, they were. Do you not talk about it? Your daughter gets raped. What do you do? I think it's a courage to look at the dark and look at it and sit in it and move through it. I think that's what we do. We love each other through these things. And you know what? We laugh so much. We have so much laughter. We find a way to laugh all the time and at whatever we can. And I think it's really important that life is not linear. I think when I was younger, I thought, things are good or they're bad. It's not like that. Things are good and they're bad. There's no great times only. There's great times and there's bad times, but they're always weaved in together. I think you just have to find a way to love and laugh through all of the times. And I think something that gets us through is the more that we can support other people. I think we take a lot of healing through being able to help other people to heal from their own challenges and to support others. I think is a great way to feel.
Ed Grossman asks, could you just remind us the name of the ski resort? Morzine.
Yeah.
And it's in France.
In France, yeah.
Morzine, Ed. Okay, I have a feeling where Ed's going with this. Hannah, if people want to know more about you, we would love to have you back at another time. You are extraordinary.
Oh, that's so kind.
Bless you for everything you're doing. Thank you for being so upfront, so honest, so eloquent, articulate, passionate. You are a living, walking a miracle, quite frankly.
That's so
I
kind.
use the words very, very rarely. As anybody knows, I'm the world's leading cynic, because a cynic is what a romantic calls a realist. But you are really quite an extraordinary human being. You really are. If people want to know more about you, Hannah, what's all your social media tags? Blah blah blah.
So my favorite place on social media is I'm not on Instagram. So I am, but I don't go on it. So Twitter is the place to find me. I love Twitter. Hannah I Power on Twitter, or you can just Google me, Hannah Power, and I'll come up various different ways.
Hannah I Power.
Yeah, Hannah I Power.
The letter I, not the
letter I. Yeah.
Okay, and I'm gonna end with you before Phil and I just go, what the hell was that about? God, we feel so humble. Veronica Curran, fantastic young lady. Stay strong and happy. And Ed Grossman, final word. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you. She said, Hannah Power, from everybody at Men's Radio Station, especially from Phil and myself. Bless you. Thank you. Stay safe. A remarkable woman. Remarkable.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. I told you this would be one of the most powerful guests we've ever had on Men's Radio. I told you it would be a roller coaster ride of emotion. Wow.
I'm just sort of
I know you're blown away.
As I say, by the way, Hannah is still in the digital green room, so I know she can hear this. This is nothing I wouldn't say to her. But I am so blown away where that kind of strength comes from.
Yeah, it's extraordinary.
I'm almost ashamed to take it to such a trivial level about saying when I was being mugged. But what I was trying to get,
it's not a trivial thing to you, Phil.
But what I was trying to
this is the great thing about life. I don't get. It's not trivial to you. You were mugged by two people.
No, I know. But what I was trying to get at is it was in some really weird way. It was actually sort of finding a very loose connection, because I don't think there's any way that many of us could even connect to that sort of
you can't.
That kind of sort of strength. Because don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting for a second that people don't have that strength within them, because a lot of people do have it. But there's no way of being able to fathom what it would take to get over, and I don't think even get over is the right word, but you know what I mean? Learn to live with something like that.
Recover from. Learn to live the rest of your life. This was a 23-year-old girl, the whole of her life ahead of her. And she made the decision, which is incredible, not to let it define her. Incredible.
Wow.
It's amazing, isn't it? And if nothing else from Men's Radio, for the whole of it, to just bring somebody like that into a public forum, well, I feel, there's some purpose to my life. I really
a sense of great honor, might I suggest, and privilege.
I agree with that. We will be back Wednesday, where we'll keep it a bit lighter. Till then, stay safe.
Bye.